So ayan, good morning DSCS 13. So it's nice meeting you all again. So today is the third week. Yes, somebody speaking. Ayan, maingay yung mga aso namin. So this is our third week of discussion. Diba? So we discussed a lot of things last week, including logic, ano bang definition ng logic. We also have discussed concepts and the different kinds of concepts, including terms and the different kinds of arguments and its kind. Okay, so before we start our class, some reminders muna tayo. So una is with regards to your attendance. Now, attendance is not a part of the grade, but I'll be giving incentives for students who have perfect attendance, and I'll be including that into class participation. Okay. So second, so since we are only meeting once a week, every 10 to 11 p.m. and every Saturday, I am expecting na before 5 minutes before or 5 minutes after 10 o'clock, 10:05, nandito na lahat. Kasi doon sa classes ko a while ago, may nag-i-in pa ng 30 minutes. So strictly next week, if meron pang ganong cases sa atin, i-deny ko na ng entry. Hindi na makakapasok sa Google Meet for the given week or for that given day. So, yon. And so important din, so I have noticed that in our Google Classroom, some of you haven't turned in their assignment yet. Or the activity, the first activity, Module 1, Activity 1. At napansin ko rin na maraming iisa lang ang sagot per number. So, dapat yan ay all that applies. So, mamaya, i-discuss ko din, nagawa ko ng Google Form at i-transfer ko ang contents noon sa Google Form para mas madali sa inyo. I-discuss ko na lang at the end of our session. Okay, so mamaya may announcements na lang at the end. So, let us start the third week. So, we'll be discussing many things ulit, including terms and the different kinds of terms, and also with definition and different kinds of definition. Sige. So you'll be having an activity rin later on, which is due today. Kaya kindly lend your ears and eyes for the moment. And pakiintindi po ang ating lesson for the day. Sige, I'll be presenting na. So again, a pleasant morning. So last week, we have discussed a lot of topics, starting with logic and its definition. We also have discussed different terms related to logic. We also have touched concepts and its kinds, together with arguments and the different types of logical arguments. So for today, we shall resume our discussion on Module 1, so which will start with the term. So ano nga ba ang term sa logic? So term is the verbal expression of an idea. Okay, so may mga examples tayo later on at I think mas malilinawan kayo later on with the given examples. So aside from that, in logic, term is the subject or predicate of a categorical proposition or statement. So it can either be the subject or predicate of a proposition. So it is also an articulate sound which serves as a conventional sign of an idea. So it may also be understood as an idea or group of ideas expressed in words. Okay, so let's talk naman about the intention or comprehension and extension of terms. The set of attributes or traits that members of a term possess is called the intention or comprehension of a term. So as an example, dog. Dog, for example, is an animal, a mammal, a living organism, or a sentient being. So the intention includes not only the essential qualities, but also those qualities deducible from them. So for example, I have said that A dog is an animal. So being an animal, a dog, for instance, can multiply. So being a living organism, on the other hand, someday it will die. So those are examples of intention or comprehension of a term. So now, let's go with extension of terms. Extension of a term, on the other hand, refers to the totality of individuals or classes to which the intention is applicable. Going back to our example a while ago, which is the term dog, so we can extend it as either to Dalmatians, canines, Labradors, and any literal dog are extension of the simple term dog. So nakikita niyo na ba ang pagkakaiba ng intention and extension of terms? Okay, so let's move on. Ayan. So sabi dito sa ating slide, the intention and extension of terms are inversely related to each other. The greater the intention of a term, the lesser its extension and vice versa. Kumbaga, kapag dinamihan mo ang definition ng isang term, yung mga qualities na dinagdag mo, mas uunti yung pwedeng i-extend nating terms related to the given term. So I'll give you an example. A young dog, for instance, stands as an intention of the term puppy. Ayan. So if we are given with the term puppy, we can have the intention as a young dog, di ba? So if we add Dalmatian to the intention, anong nangyayari? Then the extension is reduced for it does not involve non-Dalmatian puppies. So umunti ang extension ng given term nung nagdagdag tayo sa intention. So if we further increase the intention by adding newly born, the extension then decreases all the more, for it now excludes those young Dalmatian dogs that are not newly born. So logically, therefore, if we lessen the intention, the result would be the increase in the extension. So meron silang inverse relationship, intention and extension of terms. Okay, so let's move on. So let's talk naman about the different kinds of terms. So terms can be classified according to quantity or extension. So first classification according to that category is singular. So kailan singular? Refers to only one individual or thing. So the indicators or signifiers of singularity are as follows. Ayan. Singular siya kapag proper nouns and proper names ang ginamit. For example, Jeffrey, my dog Coffee, for example. Ayan. So those are proper nouns and proper names. So ano pa? Superlatives such as the best actor, the best actress, the best teacher. So examples like that. Ano? So next, weathering demonstrative adjectives or pronouns such as this book, that room, that teacher, this laptop, this slide deck presentation, for example. So those are examples of singular terms. So next, weathering personal pronouns. For example, I, he, you, she, her, as long as they definitely stand for one specific person. So siya ay singular pa rin. And then, the definite article the or specific modifier such as the lady in red can also be singular in nature. Yan. So yan yung mga quantifiers natin for singular terms. Now, let's go to the second one. Pwede rin siyang particular. Okay. Particular stands for an indefinite part of a whole. So, ibig sabihin, portion lang siya. So, in logic, a term is considered particular if it represents at least one, but not all, of the individuals composing a class. Hindi lahat. So, a portion lamang. So, now, ano ba yung mga quantifiers natin for particular terms? Okay. So, the following are indicators or signifiers of particularity. Ayan, letter A. Indefinite pronouns or adjectives such as some, many, several, few, most, and certain. For the given indefinite pronouns or adjectives, di ba, kitang-kita niyo naman, hindi nila lahat. It's just a portion of the given population. Next, weathering indefinite articles a and an used in particular context. Depende na lang sa pagkakagamit ng article sa given na proposition. Okay? Pwede rin namang number modifiers. For example, 7 dwarves, 2 princesses, 3 dishes, for example. So, pwede rin yun. So, next, pwede ring modifiers such as majority, almost all, generally all, nearly all, pero not all. Okay. So next, subject terms in propositions that are true to only some of the denotations of the terms. For example, Belgians are religious, pero we did not assume that all Belgians are religious. So we are just assuming that a portion of Belgians are religious. So pwede rin pala yun. So for particular terms. Okay, so next. Let's go with the third one. So pwede rin universal siya. Universal or general. This refers to all individuals signified by the term. The following indicates universality. So lahat na siya. Ano? So ano ang pwede? Universal affirmative quantifiers such as all, each, every, any, everything, everyone, anything, anyone, whatever, whichever, whenever, wherever, whoever. So those are universal affirmative quantifiers. Next, pwede rin namang universal negative modifiers such as none, nothing, no one, nobody, never. So yan, pwede siyang maging universal. And indefinite articles a and an when taken to refer to all denotations of the term. So when it indicates all the denotations or meanings of the term, then it can be universal, a universal term. Next. So, meron na tayong tatlo. So, ang ikaapat ay tinatawag na collective. So, collective refers to a group of individuals considered as a single unit. Ayan, kapag we consider it as a single unit, collective. So, collective nouns such as audience, committee, crowd, flock, government, jury, gang, and orchestra are collective terms. A collective term may be universal. For example, squad, all squads, every squad. So, ginamitan na ng mga quantifiers. Or particular, for example, paano naman siya nagiging particular kapag nilagyan ng quantifiers ng particular terms. For example, some family, several crowds, or singular. Kapag ginamitan naman ng quantifier ng singular, for example, this jury. So therefore, collective terms may vary depending on the quantifiers or words na nilalagay natin sa unahan. Okay? So next. Let's go to the second classification. Now, for the second classification, it's according to quality. Ayan. So first, classification natin according to quality is affirmative or positive. So it expresses what is real, true, or essential of a thing. For example, existence, life, and optimism. Di ba? Affirmative or positive siya ang dating. So predicate is affirmed of the subject. So that's affirmative or positive. So next, pwede rin namang negative. It indicates the non-appearance of something. So kabaliktaran naman ng affirmative. Predicate is denied of the subject. Okay, so that's according to quality. The next, weathering according to origin. So, pwede siyang immediate. Terms formed through direct perception of things. So, we use senses. For example, bag, pencil, di ba? First hand mo yan ma-experience. Ball pen, yellow paper, cellphone. So, those are examples of immediate terms. So, pwede ring mediate. So, which are terms formed indirectly that is through the mediation of other ideas. So, sinasamahan na ng ibang ideas. Medyo abstract ang dating. For example, God, soul, spirit, and universe. Okay, so next. So, let's talk about the kinds of terms according to the nature of reference. Pwede siyang concrete. So that's the first classification. So the referent is tangible or can be perceived by the senses. It also refers to that which indicates a quality or characteristics as inherent in a subject. For example, either black, big, tall, handsome, for example. These are concrete terms. Okay. So next, paano naman kapag abstract? So referent is tangible or can be understood only by the mind and cannot be perceived by the senses. For example, freedom, democracy, faith, love, patriotism, and compassion. So hindi siya matatouch ng physical body or mapaperceive ng senses, pero it can be understood only by the mind. Okay? So next, pwede ring logical. So these are terms formulated to serve as linguistic device. So ang purpose niya lang is to serve as linguistic device to aid learning. For example, copula, subject, velocity, which are very scientific in nature, momentum, phylum, which are used in biology, for example. Ayan. And then, it can also be null or empty. So these naman are terms that have no actual or real reference but is only imaginary. So kapag siya ay imaginary na, those are considered as null or empty. So examples are unicorn, fairy, elf, dragon, for example, si Batman, si Spider-Man, si Superman, X-Men. So those are examples of null or empty terms. Next classification of terms is according to definiteness of meaning. So, pwede siyang univocal kapag it exhibits exactly identical sense and meaning in different incidents. So, let's take the following as an example. For example, canines are dogs. Dalmatians are dogs. So as you can see, the term dog is univocal unless we give it a different meaning in any of the term dogs on the given statements. Okay, so let's have other examples. For example, man is rational and get that man. So we have similar meaning of the following of the term man on the given statements. That's why their meaning is univocal. Okay. So next, weathering equivocal. So equivocal indicates entirely different meanings in different occurrences. So magkaiba ang meaning ng term sa dalawang proposition or statements. For example, stars are heavenly bodies. and Nicolas Cage and Brad Pitt are stars. So as you can see, the use of stars on the two given statements are different from each other. The term stars is equivocal for the meaning of the term in the first statement, which is different from that of the second. Okay. So sa first, stars, di mga between ang sinasabi dyan. But for the second statement, stars signify artists, for example, actors. Ayan. So other examples, man the lifeboat. Ibig sabihin, tauhan yung lifeboat. Pag on the second statement, he is the son of man. So the term man on the given second statement ay iba ng definition natin sa term doon sa first statement natin. So equivocal siya. Okay. Pwede rin siyang maging analogous. Ayan. Analogous shows partly identical and partly distinct meanings in different occurrences. So examples natin, head of the family. Halos same siya ng sense, pero part lang ang ginamit. In the phrases head of a man and head of a family, the terms head in some sense are similar but nonetheless different in some aspects. Pag sinabing head of the man, edi ulo. Pag sinabing head of the family, that's the father, for example, or any head of the family kung sino ang pinaka-head. So other examples, healthy man, healthy diet, leg of a man, leg of a chair. So analogous term siya. Okay. So pwede ring ang terms ay i-classify according to relation. Sana all may relation. So pwedeng compatible. So kailan compatible ang terms? So these are terms that can coexist in a subject. That is, there is no logical obstacle for them to be present in a subject at the same time. Kahit sa isang proposition mo siya ilagay, pwede. For example, tall and handsome, dark and rich, slowly but surely. Yeah, so these are compatible terms. Next, ang opposite ng compatible, pwede ring incompatible. So these are terms that cannot coexist in a subject for they rule each other out. Opposite, kumbaga. Okay, so meron siyang subtype. So first is contradictory. So these are two terms, one of which negates the other. Contradictories are so mutually exclusive that there is no middle ground or third possibility between them. Kumbaga, walang gitnang classification sa kanila. For example, edible and non-edible. Wala namang category sa gitna nila. For example, a food can either be, dalawa lang ang pwede, edible or non-edible. Wala namang medyo edible. For example, di ba? For another example, being nothing. So, these are contradictory terms. So next, another subclassification is contrary. Terms that belong to the same class but deny each other. For example, elated, depressed, hard, easy, happy, sad, genius, idiot. Anong pinagkaiba niyo doon sa una na subclassification which is contradictory? Between these terms, there is or are middle grounds. When one says that his girlfriend is not black, for example, it is not safe to conclude that she must be white, for example, for she may be brown or yellow. So white and black, therefore, are contrary and not contradictory. So yun yung pagkakaiba ng dalawa. Now, let's go to the third one. Pwede rin privative. These are terms wherein one indicates the presence of a quality of perfection. Nasa kanya ng lahat. While the other signifies the absence or lack of it. Perfection and absence. For example, good and evil. These are privative. Truth and falsity. Health and sickness. Privative terms. Weathering, letter D, correlative. So two opposed terms wherein one cannot be understood without the other. Kumbaga ano na siya, isang buhat na package deal. In their meaning, they imply reference to one another. For example, husband and wife, interviewer, interviewee, parent and child. So correlative terms ang tawag sa kanila. So next, okay? So kindly take a look at the given statements or propositions. Okay, so for the first statement, Bella is a dog. Second statement, dog is spelled D-O-G. Next, dog is a sentient being. About dog siya lahat ano. Fourth, dog has 3 letters. And then lastly, a dog sleeps under the table. So as you can observe, the common denominator here is the term dog. Yet, it has different meanings for it is used in different ways in the propositions. Iba-iba naman ang gamit. So pwedeng logical, pwedeng base doon sa mga na-discuss nating different types of terms, nagamit siya in various ways on the following given statements or propositions. The various functions of a term in the proposition is called the supposition of terms. Kung ano yung naging gamit niya. Okay, so ang tawag doon, supposition, based on the term, the root word, position. Medieval philosophers developed supposition theory in the late 12th century to identify the specific usage and meaning of a term in various propositional contexts. Kung ano yung gamit niya or usage sa given na proposition. So Latin logicians called the different uses of the term its suppositiones, from supponere, which means to stand for. So kapag sinabing supposition of a term, that means the definition or usage of the term on the given propositions. Okay? So let's proceed to the next one. Ayan. Now let's talk about collective and distributive supposition. So classification siya ng supposition. Ayan. So I have here 2 statements or proposition. Kindly identify which is collective and which uses distributive suppositions. I'll be reading the statements. The people assemble themselves together in the chapel. And for the second statement, the people voted in the election. Okay. Ano kaya yung pinagkaiba ng dalawang statements? So how is the term people used in the first statement or proposition? And how is the word or the term people used in the second proposition? So both of these statements have the collective term people as their subject, as what we have observed. The terms people, however, differ in supposition. So yung gamit, yung sabi ko nga kanina, yung usage niya sa given na proposition ay magkaiba. So in a sentence with plural or collective subject, for example, people, when the predicate applies to the members of the subject, taken separately, the subject term is said to have distributive supposition, or in Latin, suppositio distributiva. So such is the case in the first statement. Tingnan mabuti, the people assemble themselves together in the chapel. People here stands for the collective term. Ano? So, part of the group siya. Kaya siya naging distributive proposition. So, paano naman? Doon sa second example, when the predicate applies to members of the subject taken as a group, collective, kumbaga. Then, or when the predicate applies to members of the subject taken as a group, the supposition is collective, such as, or in Latin, it's known as suppositio collectiva, which is the second example. The people voted in the election. Okay? So, yan. So, now let's go to another classification of supposition. So, let's talk about real and logical supposition. Anong pinagkaiba ng real sa logical supposition? I give here again two statements or two propositions. The President of the Philippines is at Malacanang. And for the second statement or proposition, the President of the Philippines is the subject of the sentence. Sige nga, kindly type in our chat box what is the term on the given statements. Sige nga, I'll give you 30 seconds. Kindly type the term on the two propositions. What is the term? Ayan, okay. Okay. So, di ba, based on our example, the term on the given two statements is the President. Okay. When the term is used to refer to the object as it is in the real order or real life, the supposition is real. In Latin, it's suppositio realis. Just like the first statement. Diba? On the first proposition, the President of the Philippines is at Malacanang. So that's how it is in real life. So when it is used to denote the object as it is in the conceptual order, the term has logical or formal supposition, which is suppositio logica. Thus, the term President on the second statement or proposition is logical supposition ang ginamit niya. Ayan. So, let's move on to our next, the next next set of or kinds of supposition, which is personal and material supposition. Now, again, I have here two propositions or statements. So, each is a kind of the other. For example, ayan, first proposition natin, Ed is feeding the dog. And for the second proposition, dog has 3 letters. So as you can see, or as what you have observed, our term or the term on the given two proposition is dog. Ano? So alin siya ang personal at alin siya ang material? Tingnan natin. So a term has personal supposition when it is employed to talk about the object or person it represents. For example, on the first statement, the dog in Ed is feeding the dog, that's the example of personal supposition. When a word is taken to simply signify its inscription or utterance, so it is in material supposition or suppositio materialis. For example, on our second proposition, dog has 3 letters. So yung first proposition natin ay personal and yung ating second proposition ay material supposition ang ginamit. Okay? So now, let's go to the next one. Ayan, let's talk about definition naman. So ano ba ang ibig sabihin naman kaya ng definition? Ayan, so let's start. A definition is a statement which explains what a thing is. It is a statement that answers the question, what is this thing? Kung anong ibig sabihin, yon ng isang bagay, that's the definition. So, di ba, in giving the definition of the term, so now let's connect that to logic, how do we give the definition of the term? So, in giving the definition of the term, it is presupposed that the comprehension of the term is understood because the definition is based on its comprehension. So, ibig sabihin, kung walang comprehension ng given a term, it's impossible na bigyan siya ng meaning. So, however, this is quite impossible since we do not usually have a full grasp of nature of things. Mahirap magbigay ng mga tungkol sa bagay-bagay. So it therefore explains the normal acceptance of a simple description as definition of an object. So, di ba, for example, in our classes, if you are asked to define something, then, for example, you give a simple description, your teacher allows you to do so. Sabi ng teacher, oh, you're right. Since if the simple description can also serve as the definition of a given object. Okay? So a real definition is one which explains and reveals the complete nature of things or objects. Ayan. Okay, so now let's talk about the different kinds of definition. May iba't ibang klase. Ayan, so let's start with nominal. Parang sa research lang na types of variables, nominal. Pero sa logic, nominal is a kind of definition. When we say nominal, it's a definition that simply explains the meaning of a term or word. So it may be the root word or an equivalent term. Okay? So maybe the root word or an equivalent term. So it can either be synonym. Kapag sinabing synonym, di ba, synonymous with a given term, parehas ng meaning pero ibang words. For example, an equivalent term, when we say synonym, that's an equivalent term or word. For example, joy means happiness or president means chief. So those are synonyms. Ano? So, synonym siya. So next, pwede ring etymology. So kapag sinabing etymology, the origin or root of the word. For example, if we are talking about biology, that's the term, biology came from the words bio, meaning life, and logos, meaning study. So thus, kapag etymology ang definition, thus biology means the study of life. So are you getting the point here, mga anak? Okay, so we have synonym and etymology. So next. Ayan. So pwede ring real. So kapag real, a definition that explains what a thing or object or subject is. It explains the nature of the object by giving its essential features or by simply describing the object. Yung essential features ng isang bagay or description niya, that's the real definition. Ayan. So next. So real definition can either be essential. Kapag sinabing essential, it explains the very nature of the object by giving its genus and difference. Ayan. Anong ibig sabihin ng genus? The proximate genus consists of the essential elements which makes the object or individual similar to others. Anong pinagkatulad ng given na bagay sa ibang bagay? And the specific difference is or are the distinctive elements which distinguishes it from others. Anong pagkakaiba niya naman sa ibang bagay? So that's essential definition and under the real definition. So next. Ayan. So it can also be descriptive. Kapag naman sinabing descriptive, it explains what a thing or object is by giving the positive but non-essential features of the subject. Lahat lang ng positive na characteristics ng isang term or ng isang bagay ang ibibigay to give its descriptive definition. But sometimes, it is difficult to give the essential features of objects or things. So kaya nga, this explains the general acceptance of a simple description of its characteristics. Ayan, so that ends our discussion for Module 1. So do you have any questions? So do you have any questions, class?
None so far, sir. None so far.
None so far. Maliwanag naman siguro. Ano? Okay, so by the way, it's already 10:48. So yung 10 minutes dapat ay intended for our activity number 2. So as I have said kanina, yung activity number 2 for module 1 is already uploaded in our Google Classroom. Nandun na po yung link ng Google Form. So kindly accomplish our activity number 2 for module 1 till today sana. Until 5 o'clock, pwede rin naman, or until kahit gabi. So mag-close yun by 12 o'clock, midnight. Ayun. And then, one more thing. So yung ating activity number 1, sabi ko nga, marami pang hindi nagta-turn in. At the same time, I have observed some students or majority of the students who have answered a single answer only for each. Diba? Ang directions nga doon is to identify the subject and determine the concepts kung alin ang applicable sa kanya. So, ibig sabihin, pwedeng maging 4, 3, 2 ang answers per number. So, I have made a Google form. So, pakilipat nyo na lang po yung sagot ninyo doon sa activity number 1, doon sa Google form. Naka-upload na rin po yung link, mga anak, doon sa ating Google Classroom. Pakisagutan at pakitransfer ang sagot until Friday, the upcoming Friday this week, until October 7. So, yun lang. And kung wala ng question, sige nga, paki-turn on na lang inyong camera for the documentation and attendance.
Sir, wait lang po.
Yes,
so, yung naka-word file po, nung unang activity, hindi po siya recorded, sir?
Hindi, ganito. I-record siya. So, ang ginawa ko, tinransfer ko or ginawa kong Google Form yung inyong activity. Di ba? Activity 1. Same contents pa rin naman.
Sa G-form, sir, kunwari sa Word file, isa lang yung sagot, tapos sa G-form, pwede magdagdag ng
yes,
answers?
Pwede. Oo, pwede
okay,
na.
Okay, thank you po.
Ayun. So, pwede nyong idagdagan or i-revise ang answers, ilipat. Kaya nga, I'll give the chance para naman medyo mataas ang scores. Sige, kindly turn on the camera and give me your biggest smile. Yan, ngiti-ngiti. Kagagwapo at kagaganda na estudyante ko sa BSCS 1-3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay na. Ayan. So, kung wala ng questions, thank you for attending the class today. See you all next meeting and have a great week ahead, mga anak.
Sige po, sir. Bye po.
Thank you, sir.